thing. It's coaching. I mean, they have the talent. They've had a ton of injuries, right?
Mhm.
And they've underperformed. But a lot of it, like Dennis Allen has no business being the head coach of that football team. And that's the best. You just said it, dude. That right there, that should have been it right there. When your team defies you, when your backup quarterback goes into that game and says, screw that, we're putting one on the board. And the linemen and everybody in that huddle agree, and
Mhm.
they run the play. That's what I'm saying. Like, that just shows that he's a total pushover. He's a joke, and you got to move on. You got to move on from Dennis Allen. But I think the thing is, they're already in cap hell, and they're probably looking at it like we're not ready to win right now, even in this crappy division. We might as well just take one more shot with all the dudes that we have to pay and this coaching staff that's already on our tab, and then next year we'll blow the whole thing up. But I've been saying about this about the Saints, you know, for it's either like every other year, right? They're going to win the division because the division sucks, or it's time for them to blow this up. But they gave out so many bad contracts. I mean, I know Michael Thomas was
Mhm.
a top 5 receiver at the time, but he's had a ton of injuries. Kamara, I love Kamara, but again, like spending all that money on a running back when you're going to win 7-8 games just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And the defense has just gotten old all of a sudden. All those guys have just gotten old. So we'll see, but I don't want to do anything with Derek Carr. I got to be honest with you, man. No season long Derek Carr props for me this year. I like my money too much to invest in him.
I mean, listen, they were kicking the can down the road for a long time, and eventually the Bills came in, right? Like, we knew that this team, and that's why Sean Payton left when he did. He saw the writing on the wall and said, this team is maxed out. It's time for me to go. I've got to move on from this. There's just no way anymore. But if you are the Saints and you're looking for a new head coach, let's say they fired Dennis Allen. Who really wants that job at this point because of that cap hell, because of the NFL purgatory that they're sitting in right now? I don't think anybody. You're not going to get a good head coach. You're not going to get a head coach that's like, the next guy up, right? The next hot offensive coordinator. So, yeah, you probably do stick around until you can get out of, at least a decent amount of these contracts, start rebuilding, and you go from scratch or as close to scratch as you possibly can. And right now if you're not going to totally bottom out, which they're not in position to really do because they have all this money committed, let's make the team competitive. Let's keep Alvin Kamara around, and let's make sure that we've got a guy that fans love that's been around for a long time and keep him there so there's something. But it's just the Saints are, I mean, there's a 9-8 team last year. I look at them again and go, I don't know, maybe they win 7 games. Maybe they win 8. Maybe they win 9. Like, they're just, there's some teams you look at and you just go, they're just, trying to think of the best way to describe it. There's nothing interesting there, if that makes sense, right? Like, you really just kind of look at them and go, they're mediocre. They're kind of in the background right now, given what their cap situation is or their roster looks like or their coach or whatever. I kind of just look at the Saints and go, compared to where they've been, they're just there. They're like a background franchise again until they can actually kind of redo this thing and build the right way.
Like, as me being a huge college football fan, the last 3 years, one of my favorite players in this league or in college football was Jake Haener, and I was so excited to see Jake Haener. And
Yeah.
I know you were out last week. He's got this rare skin cancer, man. So thoughts and prayers
Right.
for Jake Haener. Hopefully he's going to be okay. But so that's brutal, man. Where he's going to miss time, obviously. Spencer Rattler they draft. I'm also like they have Jake Haener and Spencer Rattler. I'm a little bit higher on Spencer Rattler. After what he showed last year in the SEC behind a terrible offensive line with not the best skill position players. Thought he actually improved a lot from what he did at Oklahoma. But yeah, I mean, like Jamal Williams, they didn't use. Kendry Miller's been hurt. He can't stay on the field. I like Jordan Mims if he ends up getting snaps. Kamara, there's the off the field stuff. And then there's just the fact that he's getting older and he's a running back. Chris Olave is obviously awesome. Top 10 receiver in this league, but now he's hurt. I like A.T. Perry. Then after that, it's like EQ St. Brown, Stanley Morgan Jr., Shaheed, Cedric Wilson. Maybe Cedric Wilson has a decent season. Juwan Johnson. And then on the defensive side of the ball, man, they're just getting older, right? Like Marshawn Lattimore has been a little bit beat up the last 2 years, like we talked about. Honey Badger's another year older. Willie Gay's another year older. Cam Jordan's another year older. We'll see what Chase Young has this year in the tank, but yeah, I don't think they're bad enough, like you said, to bottom out, but I couldn't do anything with their win total, their futures, and I don't really want to play an under just in case, like Olave does come back healthy. Derek Carr goes back to what we saw he had a couple good years, let's be honest, with the Raiders. I mean, they made
Yeah.
the playoffs, but he kind of just is what he is, I think, at this point of his career. If I had to do anything with this team, it would probably be the over on Derek Carr's touchdown passes. Like if you gave me a free bet and told me you have to use this on something involving the Saints, yeah, maybe I go over 21.5 because I don't think we see Spencer Rattler this season.
If you look at Kamara and then you got Jamal Williams back there and Kendra Miller, like you've got a backfield that does have a lot of talent for the Saints. What do you think their run game is going to look like this year in terms of carries? And I know it's early in camp right now, but they got a lot of talent back there.
They do. Kendra Miller, the second-year running back out of TCU, just can't get on the field. I mean, the guy got hurt on like the second, not a play. They were just warming up for the most part of the first day of camp, and hasn't been back. Strained a hamstring, and he's injured most of last year. So that's problematic. So when you throw in that name, when you go Jamal and Alvin, he hasn't really been able to do it. And Jamal struggled for the most part, didn't have the year that he had in 22. Alvin becomes such a focal point for the run game. Then you stop Alvin, you've pretty much stopped them. Now, I do feel like this offense, which is a wide zone running game, where the back will get it on the outside, and then the back cuts to the hole that's open. And to me, that's just reach of Alvin Kamara. That guy finds a crease, a sliver of light, and somehow finds his way through it. So I'm eager to see how these guys do in this system, because I think the system will benefit a smaller, more athletic offensive line, and I think it will benefit guys like Jamal Williams, who I felt like ran better on the outside last year, didn't have a ton of opportunities, and Alvin Kamara, who I just think can do most anything you want, but in a kind of let him find that hole on a wide zone, and I think that's going to fit his game to a T. And then we'll have to wait and see on Kendra Miller. But they were the 31st ranked team running the football last year, 3.6 yards a carry. Yeah. So if that number doesn't change, that's huge. That has to change.
Yeah, Mike was going to ask you about Kendra. I want to see him on the field. On the defensive side of the ball, kind of the same thing with Marshawn Lattimore as far as staying on the field. I think he's played 17 games only the last 2 seasons. So now we have Kool-Aid McKinstry taking first-team reps. Do you think he's going to be a day one starter? I know that's a hard position. Some guys just pick it up right away, like a Sauce Gardner. Some guys, it takes them a year or two. What do you see his role with this team, and how do you think that secondary looks this season?
I think Marshawn's going to be fine. I mean, most of those games that he missed the year before last, he had like a lacerated kidney. I mean, it was, serious stuff. But Kool-Aid needs the reps, so he's getting a lot more reps now. He missed all of spring, so he's kind of starting fresh. I feel it'll be Lattimore, it'll be Paulson Adebo, it'll be Alontae Taylor. Those will be your 3 kind of DBs if they go 5. Usually they do a lot of 5 DB, 2 linebacker sets. But Kool-Aid has been impressive. I mean, he doesn't, there's only one way to play cornerback, and that's just, all out. Like, you can't be afraid to get beat, and he's got that kind of swagger, so to speak. And so this is beneficial for him, certainly, to be getting these reps. I don't think, unless the Lattimore situation with the hip flexor is, far more serious than we initially anticipated, I fully expect Marshawn Lattimore and Paulson Adebo to be your day one starters. But, the more Kool-Aid gets in it, the more he has opportunities to make things happen.